Thank you for joining us today for the presentation titled An Investigation in the Teacher Perception of Leadership Practices and Their Effects on Teacher Morale. Throughout this presentation, we're going to look at the principles, school principal characteristics, and practices that they show each day within the school, and how those practices and characteristics correlate to the teacher morale within each school. So my credentials, my name is Austin Chamberlain, and I've been passionate about teacher morale since I first began my journey in education. Throughout my experience, I've taught 6th grade science and social studies, K-6 physical education, and 5th grade. Upon walking into the building within the first couple of weeks, I began to notice that teachers were unhappy. And this led me to want to develop a greater understanding of why such a large percentage of our teachers spent the majority of their day frustrated. So I quickly applied to the Educational Leadership Graduate Program at USI to try and educate myself on the topic. During this time, I continued to try my own strategies in the classroom and as a classroom teacher, but I felt that my gained knowledge and passion for education would benefit our students more in an administrative setting. So although I had learned a lot, I was still not satisfied, and I felt that there was more I could learn to better support teachers and students. So in the fall of 2019, I began my journey as a doctoral student at USI. Still growing in my career, I was the assistant principal at a high school at Evansville, Indiana, and for 2 years, and currently am the principal in an intermediate school in Princeton, Indiana. Before we begin focusing on the research, let's look at the definition of morale for the purpose of this study. And for this study, the definition of morale, it comes from Bentley and Rimble's 1963 research, as the enthusiasm that individuals feel towards achieving a goal within their working environment. The creation of this definition stems from Child's 1941 research that focuses on increasing the nation's morale years after World War I. Child stated that morale comes from the factors in an individual's life that encourage them to increase efforts to effectively benefit the group in accomplishing their goals. Child's belief was that we must study morale to ensure that Americans can return to their previously experienced way of life. Teacher morale is not a new problem, but it has been declining in recent years. 2021 was identified as the most challenging and emotionally exhausting year for teachers. When teachers are experiencing low morale, it leads to teacher burnout, lack of positive relationships, lower student outcomes, decreasing levels of job satisfaction, and overall diminishing culture and climate of the building. Students are known to mimic the behaviors of their teachers, indicating that if a teacher is not excited about teaching, then students are not excited about learning. The morale of teachers affects the stress levels of the educators in the building. It affects the low levels of teacher morale, but it also affects the stress level of our students. The significance of this research reaches much further than teachers simply not having high morale. When schools have low teacher morale, teachers also experience higher emotional exhaustion, and this correlates to increased turnover rates. The timing of the study is crucial, with 85% of teachers reported that their morale was lower in 2021 than it had been in the previous 3 years. This study will help improve administrator strategies and practices that will both increase the morale of their teachers and increase the climate and culture of their schools. Schools that report having high morale have positive relationships among students and staff, higher student outcomes, and a positive culture and climate when compared to those schools that report low teacher morale. So the purpose of this research is to identify how teachers' perceptions of the school administrators' leadership practices affect the teacher morale in their school. The results of the study provide school administrators with the necessary data to enhance their practices and improve teacher morale in their school, promoting a positive culture and climate and increased academic outcomes for their students. So this study revolves around 3 research questions. Research question 1, what are the teachers' perception of their own level of morale in the workplace? This question is going to provide us with the necessary data to identify our problem and serve as a baseline for future research. Question 2, which administrative leadership practices do elementary teachers identify as having the greatest impact on teacher morale? This question is going to provide us with specifically which leadership practices elementary school teachers perceive as being the most impactful in relation to their teacher morale. In research question 3, how do teachers' perception of the capability of their school principal to carry out the listed administrative practices affect their teacher morale? And this question is going to provide us with the information to see if the administrative practices have a significant effect on the teacher morale based on how they feel their administrator carries out each of the practices. The research method for this study was in the form of a survey. The survey used in the study is the Teacher Perception of Administrative Practices Survey. The survey and the recruitment letter were sent out to participants via email between August 5th, 2022 and September 11th, 2022. All the data collected is used using the survey tool Qualtrics, and all statistical tests were used utilizing SPSS version 27. The participants in this study are K-6 public school teachers in Southern Indiana. The K-6 teacher population was chosen because traditionally, K-6 students spend the majority of the day with the same teacher. Teachers who push into classrooms such as resource or related arts teachers were excluded from this study because research shows that in instances where students transition to many teachers in a given day, there are few opportunities to build those relationships, and that limits the factors impacting teacher morale and impedes on the connection between teacher morale and academic outcomes and student achievement. Middle school and high school teachers were also excluded from the study because traditionally students in these schools rotate between many teachers in one day. In scenarios where a school might host grades K-8, only the K-6 teachers were surveyed. The exclusion of 7th and 8th grade teachers in these schools is due to the level of training teachers may have received during the licensure programs. Teachers who meet the requirements for licensure in elementary school and elementary education develop the skills necessary to teach grades K-6, which indicates that the training would be different for teachers in a middle school setting or grade 7 and 8. If the 6th grade teachers are employees at 6-8 schools, these teachers are also excluded because they're recognized as middle schools rather than elementary schools in the state of Indiana. The survey and recruitment letter were sent to 1,067 teachers, ranging from 16 schools in 16 school corporations and 64 schools. Of these prospective participants, 102 K-6 were active in this study. K-6 teachers were active in this study. Anywhere between 73 and 82 answered each section of the survey. So if there was a question that was left blank by a participant, the lack of response was omitted, and there was not factored into the main score at all. And the schools were chosen due to their wide range of demographic and socioeconomic statuses. The demographic data was collected on each participant to collect the appropriate information regarding their gender, years of teaching experience, enrollment at their school, socioeconomic status of their school, and the primary grade that each teacher teaches. So the survey used in this study was created by modifying Delaney's 1991 survey. Delaney used Bentley and Rimple's 1967 research as a reference when creating the original version of the survey. So in the creation of the Teacher Perception of Administrative Practices survey, there were 14 questions eliminated or combined based on face validity tests, which included 4 Southern Indiana teachers as well as 1 university instructor in teacher education. The Likert scale type responses options were also modified to increase understanding and limit to 5 options to ensure a larger population size and increase reliability of the data. And all feedback was taken into consideration while creating the final survey. The Teacher Perceptions of Administrative Practices survey focuses on school principals' administrative practices and surveys teachers on their perceptions of how these behaviors are affecting teacher morale. The survey is separated into 6 sections. Each section is identified with the letters A through F. And embedded within these sections are questions that fall into 3 categories of administrative behaviors, which are the principal's personality, the principal's policies, and the principal's competency. Section A of the survey focuses on the participants' demographic information. The demographic data to be collected includes the gender, the primary grade taught, the enrollment of the school, socioeconomic statuses of the school, and the years of teaching experience of the participant. Section B of Delaney's 1991 survey was omitted. This section asked participants to identify the greatest contributing factor for teacher morale. So this study focuses on leadership practices that affect teacher morale rather than all factors, including those. So some of the things that were omitted were teacher salary and things that are out of the control of the school principal or school level administrator. Section C of the survey lists 16 administrative practices. This section asks about the participants' perception of how each listed administrative practice affects teacher morale. Each question has a Likert scale response ranging from no effect to very high effect. Each question in this section also correlates to one of the 3 administrative categories, being personality, policy, or competency of the principal. Section D of the survey has the same administrative practices as Section C. Again, the participants will answer the Likert scale responses. The difference between Section C and Section D is that while Section C asks which administrative behavior teachers perceive to be most impactful, Section D asks participants how well their principal or their school administrator completes each of the tasks, ranging from failing to excellent. Section E consists of one Likert scale type question asking the participants to rate their level of morale from very low to very high. And then the survey concludes with Section F, which provides the participants to leave a typed response if they wish to share any administrative practices that they believe have effect on teacher morale that was not mentioned in the survey. The results of this question were recorded and are explained in chapters 4 and 5 and can provide some information into future research. The results from the research question 1. What are teachers' perception of their own level of morale in the workplace? Were broken down by each demographic group, as well as by total score of morale. The data indicates that 69.7% of teachers recorded their morale was from moderate or low. These results indicate that low morale is a current problem in Southern Indiana public elementary schools. When we break down the data by demographic data, we can see that on the 3-point scale, male participants had a mean score of 2.3, which indicates that male elementary school teachers in Southern Indiana have a mean morale that falls between medium and high, while female participants had a mean morale score of 1.89, which falls between low and medium. So although the data does show that male participants have a higher morale than female participants, given the small sample size of the male population, we're unable to say there's a significant trend just based on the only 10 males versus the 65 females that participated in the study. The participants were also broken down by their years of teaching experience. The participants were separated into 3 categories of experience from little to high. The little experienced participants have completed 1 to 7 years of teaching experience. Moderate experience participants completed 8 to 19 years of teacher experience. And highly experienced participants have completed 20 to 35 years of teaching experience. Interesting enough, you can notice that there's a trend lowering morale based on the years of experience of each participant. Teachers who have the least experience tend to have the highest morale, which is shocking because new teachers have a lot of new stress on them, trying new strategies for the first time. A lot of just trying to get a handle on their classroom for the very first time can be very stressful. The trends in the data are alarming because some significant research points out that teacher retention is a main factor in student achievement, while other significant research states that teacher morale is the greatest predictor of student achievement. So the data from research question 1 crosses both of these theories and shows that they're really working against each other. When we have high retention leads to high student outcomes, and high morale leads to high student outcomes, we're really crossing these by saying, well, little experience has the highest morale, but highest experience has the greatest outcomes. So identifying a solution to, how to have high experience, high retention, and high morale could be a great solution to our current problem. When looking at morale in comparison to the total enrollment of schools, there's a small correlation between the number of students and the morale level. Schools that have higher enrollment could be a factor in high morale, but it is challenging to say just based on the skewed population size and the significant gap between participants in each section. Teacher morale from the perspective of grade level taught is also inconclusive. You can notice that the highest morale comes from grade 1 teachers, but based on the small sample size again and high standard deviations, it's inconclusive. Grade level plays a significant role in a teacher morale. Teacher morale from the perspective of socioeconomic status of each school is another category that's worth noting. Although the scores are similar across the board, it's worth acknowledging that the lowest score comes from the schools in the best socioeconomic standing with a mean score of 1.75, which means that the teachers in that school or in that socioeconomic status have morale that falls between low and medium. Where morale levels are highest with the lowest socioeconomic status with a score of 2.03, which is slightly above more medium morale or between medium and high morale. There's no obvious trends here, but it's worth noting that in this data, specifically in this research, the lowest socioeconomic status did report having the highest morale, and the highest socioeconomic status did report having the lowest morale. The results for research question 2, which administrative leadership practices do elementary teachers identify as having the greatest impact on teacher morale? They help us identify which administrative practice elementary school teachers in Southern Indiana perceive to have the greatest impact on their morale. And of the 16 Likert type options, it's identified that elementary school teachers perceive that principals who support teachers in student discipline matters have the greatest impact on teacher morale, while principals that welcome constructive criticism of administrative practices by the teachers have the lowest impact. The data collected from research question 2 indicates that Southern Indiana elementary school teachers perceive that all 16 of the practices have an effect on morale at a level between high effect and very high effect. So each of the 16 options, which are identified on this next slide, all fell within a category of greater than high effect. So you can see here the 16 behaviors are listed here as statements. Principal shows appreciation to the teachers. The principal is fair and consistent with teachers. The principal recognizes good teacher practices. The principal communicates with teachers. The principal shows interest in all grade levels. Statement 6, the principal listens to teachers' concerns and is considerate when resolving those concerns. Principal considers teacher capacity for placement. Principal supports teachers with student discipline. The principal ensures working conditions are sufficient. The principal assists teachers when possible. The principal takes teacher opinion into consideration. Principal runs a well-organized school. The principal ensures teachers have pupil relief. And principal ensures that class sizes are appropriate. Principal welcomes constructive criticism. And statement 16 is the principal is considerate of students and parents. So all of which were scored to have greater than a high effect on teacher morale. So as stated previously, of the 16 listed administrative practices, all of them fall between high and very high effect. The top overall administrative practices are the school principal supports in student discipline matters with a mean score of 4.60, and that comes from the policy category, and it's listed above as statement 8. Second highest ranking, the principal listens to the concerns of the teachers and is considerate and courteous of the teachers when resolving such concerns, with a mean score of 4.59, which came from the personality category listed above as statement 6. And the principal ensures the teachers have relief from people contact in their teaching schedule to allow for planning or other job-related tasks. Was the third highest morale identifier with a mean score of 4.48, which also comes from the policy category, and you can see here as statement 13. It's also worth noting that the 3 administrative practices that were identified as having the least impact on teacher morale were principals that welcome constructive criticism of administrative policies by the teachers. That had a mean score of 4.06, which comes from the policy category, and you can see is listed in statement 15. The work of the individual teacher is appreciated and commended by the principal has a mean score of 4.11. That is our second lowest, and it comes from the personality category and listed above is statement 1. In our third lowest, the principal makes effective use of individual teacher capacity and talent regarding teaching assignments with a mean score of 4.23, which comes from the competency category and listed here as statement 5. The results from research question 3 reflect on the question, how do teachers' perception of their capability of their school principal to carry out the listed administrative practices affect teacher morale? Each of the 16 practices were separated into 3 categories, being principal personality, principal policies, and the competency of the administrator. Although research question 2 identified the perception of how impactful teachers perceive the practices to be, research question 3 will compare how well each principal carried out each task to the morale of the participant. The results from research question 3 provide the data to identify how the actions of administrators are affecting the morale of the teachers based on the personality, characteristics, and policies, and the competency of the administrator. So while reviewing the data, it's identified that participants who felt that their school administrator carried out each administrative practice in the personality category at a high level had a significantly higher morale. Participants who fell into the low morale group felt that their principal performed tasks in the personality category at a level falling between needs improvement and satisfactory at 2.4. The participants who fell into the moderate morale group felt that their principal performed tasks in the personality category at a level falling between satisfactory and good, with a mean score of 3.41. The participants who fell into the high morale group felt that their principal performed tasks in the personality category at a level falling between good and excellent, the mean response of 4.35. These results indicate that participants who perceive their principal to carry out leadership practices with a high personality ranking also had higher morale at a statistically significant level. When reviewing the data for research question 3, we can see that participants who felt that school administrator carried out administrative practices in the policy category at a high level had a significantly higher morale. Participants who fell into the low morale group felt that their principal performed tasks in the policy category at a level falling between needs improvement and satisfactory, with a mean score of 2.38. Participants who fell into the moderate morale group felt that their principal performed tasks in the policy category at a level falling between satisfactory and good, with a mean response of 3.25. And the participants who fell into the high morale group felt that their principal performed tasks in the policy category at a level falling between good and excellent, with a mean score of 4.20. So these results also indicate that participants who perceive their principal to carry out leadership practices with a high policy ranking had a higher morale at a statistically significant level. When reviewing the data, it's identified that participants who felt that their school administrator carried out administrative practices in the competency category at a high level had a significantly higher morale. Participants who fell into the low morale group felt that their principal performed tasks at the competency category at a level falling between needs improvement and satisfactory, with a mean response of 2.4. Participants who fell into the moderate morale group felt that their principal performed tasks in the competency category at a level falling between satisfactory and good, with a mean score of 3.52. And the participants who fell into the high morale group felt that their principal performed tasks in the competency category at a level falling between good and excellent, with a mean response of 4.37. The results also indicate that participants who perceive their principal to carry out leadership practices with high competency ranking also had higher morale at a statistically significant level. The data also suggests that although administrative qualities play a significant role in teacher morale, not each quality was equal. When each of the administrative practices perceived effects was ordered from greatest to least, it was identified that the greatest characteristics were placed in the policy category, held 7 of the top 8 highest rankings. The effects of administrative practices that were in the personality and competency category occupied 7 of the bottom 8 morale effects. So in each of the 3 administrative categories, personality, policy, and competency, if the teachers felt that their school administrator was successful in carrying out those tasks in those categories, their morale across the board was statistically significantly much higher than those who felt that their principal was not successful in those categories. Section F of the survey provided the participants with an opportunity to list any other administrative practices that are affecting teacher morale. So this section had 3 main themes. The first theme addressed Section F of the survey. It indicated that participants perceive the district administrators to have too much control over the operation of the individual schools. 6 of the 29 participants that answered Section F acknowledge that they appreciate their principal and that the main reason they're unhappy is due to the district level administration. One participant even said that the principal is in quotes great, but that their morale is low due to the corporation they're currently employed at. Another participant acknowledged that, quote, much of what we face is not the fault of the principal, but the district or state policies. These participants state that teacher morale will not improve until policies at the state or federal level are improved. The participants who responded to Section F with concerns about district level administration also frequently mentioned blanket terms such as district level requirements, district policy, and items that are, quote, out of the principal's control. The participants who contribute to theme 1 speak highly of the principal by stating that they frequently doing their best, but they're left with, quote, several bad options while making decisions. Another concern of the participants was that the district level administration has too many levels, and they're unaware of what is actually best for the individual school. These participants felt that the principal should have more of a voice in making decisions regarding new initiatives that fit their individual school needs. The participants acknowledged that the principal would like to make changes to better support their teachers, but that a significant amount of these negative morale identifiers come from the district level rather than the school level. So theme 2, the second theme, comes from Section F of the survey, which was teachers' time. This was addressed in the survey, and it was actually the 3rd highest morale identifier. Was principals that provide ample time away from students had higher morale. But 4 participants mentioned this again in Section F, and it said their morale is low due to lack of time for pupil relief. The participants who acknowledged that the use of their time was a morale identifier commented that their 30-minute lunch breaks or their, quotes, 30-minute playing period and numerous duties they're asked to cover throughout the day contributed to their declining morale. These participants also mentioned that there are too many meetings that are ineffective and that they would rather use this time in meetings. They should be trusted and have a stronger emphasis on teachers' experience. And then research question 3, the 3rd theme identified in Section F was the teacher perception of administrative practices survey is the lack of support for teachers, especially when working with student discipline. This statement was mentioned in the survey, and it was actually the number 1 morale identifier was principals who support teachers in student discipline matters. But 4 participants addressed this concern of the principal support in this section. The participants who support this theme, they stated that discipline is not equal for all students in their school. Others suggested that they no longer request office support for discipline matters because, quote, nothing will be done about it. The student being the student behaviors. These participants also identified that their school administrators are, quotes, too easily swayed by influential parents. It stated that teachers perceive that they are not supported in discussions with their student parents. It suggested that principals often, quote, throw teachers under the bus when it comes to working with the parents of a challenging student. One participant did provide a suggestion for how to improve morale rather than stating all the things that principals are doing to lower morale. And this participant stated that they have a very supportive coach who helps teachers who are, quote, struggling. So one of the limitations of the study includes the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic increased teacher stress, workload, burnout, and decreased morale of teachers across the United States. The increased stress could be a factor in some of the responses of the study. The study also took place during the opening months of the 2022-2023 school year. It is possible that teachers felt the stress of the new school year while answering the survey, thus infecting their responses. A limitation that occurred during the study is the number of participants who did not completely fill out the survey. There were 102 participants throughout the study. Of these participants, 31 did not answer every question. This could be due to not feeling comfortable, time restraints, or other unforeseen circumstances. In the instance that a participant did not respond to a question, there was no score for that response. And each of the administrative practices received a mean effect falling between high and very high effect is another limitation of the study. To improve this limitation, the researcher could have seen more success in accuracy had we made a scale ranging from 1 to 10. When asking the effect size, participants saw each administrative practice as having a high effect. I think accuracy could be improved had we asked to rank them or score them on a scale, on a larger scale. This research suggests that there are many administrative practices that could be influencing teacher morale. So similar to Bentley and Ripple's 1967 study, future research could be improved by creating the study on a smaller scale. School administrators and researchers could benefit from identifying the teacher's perception of their morale and administrative practices by following the same school throughout the principal's efforts to improve in these areas. This future research could help identify if school principals can improve their teacher morale or if teachers' level of morale influences their perception on how well the administrators are completing and accomplishing the tasks. Future research in the area of teacher morale could benefit from receiving the principal's perspective on the topic. Researchers can benefit from recreating the teacher perception of administrative practice survey and adjusting the questions of principals to self-reflect on how well they carry out each practice. The study could identify more specific results if a researcher were to survey specific schools and their administrators and identify if there was a gap between how well the administrator perceived they were carrying out each task and how well the teachers perceived they were carrying out each task. And future research could also be improved by identifying the teacher and building level administrators' perceptions of the leadership practices at the district level. 2016 research and 2018 research from Poffler suggests that district level administration can influence the morale of the school administrators. These studies also acknowledge that when the school principals have low morale, teachers also perceive having low morale. And after reading section F of the survey, we see that there's a need for future research regarding district level administration and its role in each individual school. Identifying the perception of individuals regarding district level admin could offer suggestions to improve morale based on the open-ended feedback that we found in section F of the study. And researchers could also benefit from running the study at multiple points throughout the school year. The data from this study specifically was collected during the beginning weeks of 22-23 school year. Future research can benefit from running this the first weeks of school, middle of the year, and the end of the year, and see if there's any correlation between time frame and morale of teachers. There are multiple implications for this study. The data suggests that the practices of the school administrator do have a significant role in the morale of the teachers. The teacher perception of administrative practices survey references 16 administrative practices, all of which were considered to have a high or very high effect on teacher morale by the participants. Administrators in practice can use the research as a reference to determine where they identify or anticipate their shortcomings and increase their practices in those areas to improve teacher morale. Similar to Bentley and Ripple's 1967 research, if the administrators acknowledge the morale levels in their school and they address the concerns with improved practices, they can see an increase in teacher morale and improve student outcomes. Additionally, principals who acknowledge the purpose of the low morale without addressing the solution or improving their practices, they will see greater decreases in the teacher morale in their school. The data also suggests that although of the three administrative practices, all three are valuable to high teacher morale, strong administrative policies score higher on average than administrative personality or competency. Principals may use this research to identify which category they are weakest in and develop a plan to improve their practices in that category. It could be beneficial for a school administrator to survey their staff using a similar survey to identify their perception of their morale, as well as how they perceive each practice to affect morale and how the administrator carries out each practice. The data here provides the necessary information to understand how teachers in general perceive morale in administrative practices, but does not provide personalized information for the individual school. If a principal wishes to see improved morale, they should identify the needs of their specific school rather than the needs of Southern Indiana elementary schools. So thank you for being a part of this presentation today. If you have any questions about the research, feel free to shoot me an email at achamberlain@eagles.usi.edu. I do appreciate all you guys watching this today. I hope you were able to learn something and put this into practice, because it's very important that we increase the morale of our teachers, which in turn will improve the educational opportunities for our students. Thank you.